but I personally believe that car was possessed from the day that I picked it up, and I am so grateful that somebody else now has that car. Hello, Kurt Curtis coming at you from the Full Octane Garage, and we're going to talk a little bit about our segment called Strange Car Stories, and I'm going to lead this off with one of my strange car stories. And this goes way back when I picked up a 1956 Corvette Project Car that I was going to turn into a resto mod. And when I got it, as you'll see in these pictures, it was basically a chassis and a shell of a car. And what I decided to do was I wanted to put an LS1, LS2, LS3, even an LS6 motor in this car. So I put some feelers out to my friends. I said, hey, I really want to get an aluminum block LS motor. Keep your ears out. Let me know if there's something out there. Well, one of my good friends came back to me and says, hey, I don't have a motor per se, but I have a whole car. And I was thinking, it's already got an LS motor in it. And I said, well, what kind of car is this? He said it's a 1956 Bel Air four-door post car, and the whole chassis has been upgraded, the interior's been done, the car's been painted, it's almost finished. It needs a front bumper, a grille, needs some wiring, and a front runner system, and a couple minor things, and a computer for and it's an LS6 motor. So I'm thinking, well, this sounds pretty cool. How much do you want for the car? Well, he says, hey, give me $10,000 and the car is yours. And so I got to thinking and doing the math. I was going to spend about $3,000 or $4,000 for a good LS6 motor. So I thought, why don't I just get this car, put a 5.3 Vortec back in it, and then sell the car, and then I'll essentially have gotten a free motor. So lo and behold, I go pick the car up, and the very first thing that happens to me is I take my enclosed car trailer, I go to pick the car up, we get it loaded, and we're coming down the highway. It's raining out, drizzling a little bit, and it's Highway 840 nearby our house. And 65-mile-an-hour road, we're cruising down the road. My truck's feeling good with that trailer back there. And I'm on the phone with my wife telling her about my new find and how really pretty the car looks. And then I look in my side mirror and I see sparks periodically coming out from where my tires should be on the trailer. And I get to thinking, that's not normal. So I pull over to the side of the road and hang up with my wife, obviously. I run out to look at the trailer, and lo and behold, it's a dual axle trailer, and the left front tire is totally gone. There's no wheel, there's no lug nuts, there's no tire. So somewhere along the road, I lost a wheel. And I'd torqued these lug nuts probably, a month before. Haven't used the trailer since, just came back from a 1,200-mile trip, and everything was perfect. So I go to put my spare tire on. I'm kind of in a hurry thinking, oh my God, what happened to this tire? I hope it didn't go out and hit somebody in the other lane. Well, all of a sudden I hear a rescue unit and a fire truck coming onto the highway in this exit that I'm on. I'm thinking, oh my God, somebody's been hit. And actually I was thinking, I better hurry up and get this thing on and get the heck out of here. So I go to jack the trailer up, put the tire on, and I could not get the lug nuts to stay on, to tighten up all the way down. So as I'm doing this, all of a sudden I hear the rescue unit and fire engine coming back toward me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they figured out whose tire went through somebody's windshield. Lo and behold, they pass right by me. I'm thinking, I've really dodged a bullet. I hope I didn't hurt anybody. So I get the tire on, it's wobbling, I'm riding the shoulder. I call my buddy Tom, who's got a shop nearby, and he's going to let me park the trailer there. He's actually going to meet me nearby and see if we can do anything else. So I'm getting on the off-ramp on 840 onto I-65, and I look to the left, and lo and behold, there was a car ahead of me that had spun out, and that rescue unit had been getting on the highway and flipping around to get back to the accident in front of me. So I was grateful that I dodged a bullet and I didn't hurt anybody with that tire flying off. I get the trailer over to my buddy's house. We leave it because I'm going to have to bring parts back. I go back on the highway, and this is probably a 10-mile stretch of highway, and I drove that highway 3 different times and never could find my wheel. So that has probably gone off-road into the brush someplace, and I'll never see that again. So I'm thinking, okay, I finally get the car home. I spend a couple of months on it. I get the motor swapped. I get a new motor in it. I get all the parts on, get it running, and it's like, hey, it's time to go to lunch on a Friday afternoon. So I get my neighbor who works out of this house also, and we get in the car. My wife will not drive in the car. She's driving a separate car because she doesn't trust my work for the first 500 miles, and I don't blame her. So we get in the car. We drive to Burger Republic over in Lenox Village. And we park the car. I get, again, gosh, a primo spot. I get the front end spot when I pull in. So I'm thinking, my gosh, I'm living large. So we go in and we eat a burger, and we're looking outside, and it looks like people are admiring the car. I'm thinking, boy, that's a lot of people admiring a car that, if you look at these pictures, it's a nice car, but it's not a fantastic car. So what we do is, when we finish eating our burger, we come out, and I look to the right where my car was parked, and lo and behold, there's another car in the spot. My car is nowhere to be seen. So I'm thinking, well, this is strange. So I step out, and I see a big crowd of people in the middle of the road down the way, and all of a sudden I see my car uphill in the middle of this parking lot, and it's causing a traffic concern. A seatbelt's hanging out the door, and I'm thinking, my gosh, how did my car get out of an angled spot, turn, and get uphill? So I go to get in the car to start it up to get it out of everybody's way, and this gentleman comes running up to me, and he says, I am so sorry, my brother had a schizophrenic episode. He thought the car was his. He got in the car, he put it in neutral, it started rolling back. We turned the wheel so it didn't hit any cars. But before we could push it back in the spot, somebody came in and took the spot. So we were like, what do we do with your car? So we get the car and we push it uphill, trying to find a spot. We never found a spot, so we just left it there until you came out. Meanwhile, his brother is being held back by his mother, who was now called to the scene. And this gentleman is about 24 years old who had the schizophrenic episode. So his mother's holding him back, and all of a sudden he thinks I'm stealing his car. So John, my friend John, and I get in the car and proceed to get the heck out of there before this guy decides to come beat us up for stealing his car. So we pull around the corner, and then we get home, and I realize that I look down and the remote for my power gates is not in the car anymore. So I call back to the burger place, and it turns out it was the dishwasher's brother who was the one who did it. And the manager knew who it was, so they called him up and asked his mother where my gate remote was. Does he still have it? So I got a call back about an hour later. It says, great news, we found your gate remote. Bad news, he thinks it's the key to the car that you stole, so he's not giving it up. So meanwhile, his mother came in and ended up having to have him checked into the institution for a little bit to get on his meds, and we finally got my remote back. So I think, 2 things happened to the car. It can't be that bad. It's not possessed. There's nothing wrong with it. So all of a sudden I decide, it's just not the car I want. So I put it on eBay for sale. And after I sell the car, the gentleman comes up and sends a truck to pick it up. And some of these pictures you'll see when it's loaded, the car is sitting at a steep angle on the back of the trailer. And while he's strapping the car down, I look down and I notice there's transmission fluid falling out on the ground. This car hasn't leaked a bit since I've had it. So as we look at it, by the time it got to California, it had no transmission fluid in it because it was leaking out of the tail shaft vent tube that should have been sealed off and obviously wasn't by the last guy that built the car. So I told the gentleman, go ahead and get a new rear seal. I'll take care of it. Shouldn't be too much, a couple $100 max. So he sends it over to his shop. His shop puts transmission fluid in it. They drive it around the block, and they took it for a spirited drive. They hit the gas really hard, and lo and behold, it starts making a very bad clunking noise. And I'm like, that car was in perfect shape when it left here. Well, what had happened, the last gentleman that I bought the car from had somebody else build the rear end. It had a Trailblazer rear end in it. And they had cold welded the axle pads onto the axle. That they weren't hot weld, so I didn't observe it because they had painted them. They looked like good welds. And so what had happened when they accelerated, the axle twisted, caused the drive shaft to start bouncing against the bottom of the car. So lo and behold, another couple $1,000s back to the new buyer to get this repaired. And he seems to be happy with the car. I'm not sure. I've never heard from him. I don't know if the car is still possessed, but I personally believe that car was possessed from the day that I picked it up. And I am so grateful that somebody else now has that car. Tell us about your strange car story. We'd love to hear it. Go to strangecarstories.com, fill out an application, and we'd love to have you over at our studio to tell us a little bit about your strange car story.